Today, for Devotions with Daniela, and in recognition of how bad it is for women in the military, we are reading from the first book of Daniela, Uncultured, a book I wrote all about how bad it is for women in the military. It's about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and then going into the sex cult of the U.S. Army. This is chapter 25, Take One for the Team, and I am deployed to Afghanistan. I thought about how close I'd been to leaving the Army, how close I'd been to leaving everything. And suddenly, I was with a boss I respected, a team I loved, and the beginning of a relationship with someone who felt like he might be the one. That's Mr. Knitting Cult Lady. The hope I felt carried over into my role as a leader, too. Private Andrea Parker, who'd been placed on my team back at Fort Campbell with less than 2 months to prepare for war, had been struggling since the beginning. But I wanted to believe in her, wanted to be something like the mentor I never had when I was in her position just a few years earlier. Think Private Parker will be trouble in Afghanistan? The headquarters unit commander, another captain, had asked me one day before the deployment, casually sitting next to his first sergeant, because they make sex illegal on deployments, which, as I say earlier in the book, doesn't make the sex taboo. It makes owning a vagina taboo. I remembered the brutal start with my first unit, the late arrival to a team without the knowledge of their mission, nor the understanding of the unwritten rules of being a soldier, seen as desirable by a sandbox full of men. Don't get raped. I felt enraged on her behalf, on my own. Do you know that's what my bosses whispered about me before my first deployment? I asked him, somehow managing to keep my tone professional. Then they treated me like I was trouble. A threat, all the time. I won't have that discussion. No. He looked at me for a moment, head cocked, like he'd never even considered that, like he couldn't comprehend anyone seeing me as anything other than the professional he knew me to be, with the ironclad reputation I'd worked so hard to establish. Okay, fair point. My bad. At least he seemed a man willing to listen, willing to try to understand that women were fighting an additional war invisible to him, one damning in its brutality, in the harm the Army caused its women every time we deployed to serve our country. With Lieutenant Colonel Halter's leadership and the high value he placed on character, coupled with my rank and stature, I started to believe it was possible to get men like this to see it, to see us. And if I could do that, then maybe, just maybe, I could enlist their help to fight it. After all, fighting for our brothers and sisters was what we were supposed to be about. Once they understood how the gossip, harassment, and rape culture were hurting us, wouldn't they want to stop the fratricide against their sisters in arms? I wanted Private First Class Parker's first deployment to be so much better than mine. I wanted her to not fear the men she served alongside, to not get tossed a pamphlet telling her that rape was inevitable and her fault. I wanted to make sure that, at just 19, she didn't become one of the statistics, like I was. But the Army operates under an it's better to be feared than loved paradigm, especially when it comes to officers. And I had to be careful about not appearing to dole out preferential treatment. I did my best before we ever got on the plane to make sure I knew she had her back. In Afghanistan, Private Parker worked the night shift in my intelligence station. One morning, just weeks into our first deployment, as I walked through the door, she said, "Ma'am, can I talk to you alone?" That was the first mistake. That was when I didn't follow military protocol I'd been trained on, protocol designed to protect officers from their soldiers. The thought of bringing in a witness never crossed my mind, not even for a second. I saw a scared teenage girl, one who I'd sworn to do my best to protect, one who was under not only my command, but also my protection. I didn't see a threat like the ones I'd been trained to assess. I saw a girl who needed help. We walked into a borrowed office and closed the door. It took her a while to get the words out, and she had a hard time meeting my eyes. "Mr. Albright has been sending me text messages," she finally said. "It's making me uncomfortable, and I want it to stop." I needed more information. I could think of no circumstances in which Chief Warrant Officer 3, Hank Albright, a married warrant officer and one of our senior pilots, should have been engaging in any sort of non-work related conversations with a married 19-year-old private first class. "What kinds of text messages?" I asked. "Here they are," she said, handing me the cell phone with the text thread. "Nothing sexual, but I'm concerned. My husband wouldn't like it, and I want him to stop. Mr. Albright keeps telling me that I'm too pretty to be in the Army." I sighed and opened the phone. It was my phone, one I'd given her for emergencies, because I was worried about her walking alone at night. Too pretty to be in the Army. How many times had I heard that ridiculous line before? I scanned the text messages, knowing that I'd need to get a feel for what they contained, as the command would ask a lot of questions, once, if this was reported. That part was up to her. The messages were friendly and casual and not work-related, therefore inappropriate according to the Army regulations. But, as she said, I didn't notice anything blatantly sexual either. I did see that some of the messages had been deleted, a text thread progressing in a way that didn't make contextual sense in some places. From the way the thread read, I assumed those had been messages where she was complaining about me, her boss, and she'd deleted those before coming to me. Nothing about that seemed strange or made Mr. Albright's actions less serious. She was a 19-year-old kid, and deployments were hard. Of course she complained about her boss sometimes. Everything she said added up. "Parker," I said, "what steps would you like to take next? Let me explain your options." I paused briefly, making sure that I recalled all the information I'd been trained on. I was our unit's equal opportunity representative, a position I had asked for, to the surprise of those who didn't see it as an officer's job. I thought of the many sexual harassment and rape prevention classes I'd taught. I took a deep breath and began. "The first thing I want you to know is that no matter what you decide here, I will make Mr. Albright stop texting you. This is what we call the third-party approach. You report it to me, and I'll go to the lowest level that I can, which is to Mr. Albright directly. This is what we are taught to do. It seems like you participated in this conversation at first, but you will never be in trouble for that. He's the senior ranking person, so he's the one responsible. I outrank him by a lot, so you don't need to worry about that." Then I had to say the part I neither liked nor agreed with. "When you leave this room, you can do one of two things. You can file either an official or unofficial complaint of harassment. The official complaint will be investigated and will likely have negative impacts on Mr. Albright. The unofficial complaint means that I and the rest of your chain of command will be informed and aware of what happened. We will make sure it never happens again, and we will do our best to protect you. But no formal investigation will take place. That would mean no negative actions will happen to your harasser." I paused again, making sure I was being extremely careful not to influence her opinion. "I want to be very clear. You need to tell me what you want to do, and I will do it." "But ma'am," she said, "don't you think that because I'm just a private and he is one of the most important helicopter pilots in the unit, they'll protect him?" In that moment, I saw a scared young woman, like the one I had been so many times, in so many situations. In any other time or place, I would have offered her a hug. "Andrea," I said softly, breaking protocol by using her first name. "To be honest, I don't know what will happen. The Army is trying to change the way it does things in regard to sexual harassment. Back when I was a very junior officer, things weren't great for women, especially in these situations." My mind flashed back to Kandahar, to the boss who'd put me in an impossible situation, to all of the men who'd propositioned me nonstop, to the ex-Marine who'd pushed me down into a pillow and taken what he wanted from me. I remembered my boots unlaced in the corner, the futility I'd felt thinking about trying to report that rape, in getting anything that resembled help and not condemnation. I thought of the friends I had told years after the fact, the ones who implied that it had indeed been my fault for breaking the rules in the first place. "You're right," I said. I could hear my voice shake. "He is an important officer in this unit, and you are a private." I took a deep breath, wanting to make promises, but unsure of which ones I could keep. "But believe me when I say this, I will protect you. I'm an important officer in this unit too, and you work for me." And then it all fell apart. You can listen to me read this to you anywhere you get your audiobooks or get signed copies of Uncultured attached here.